excited to start training camp. This is our first day of training camp, and we're coming to, I think we're about 2 weeks away from where we can start saying we've actually had this day happen before, so we're looking forward to that. I'm happy to answer any questions.
If you have a question, raise your hand. We'll find you the mic. Start the mic list, please.
Yeah, Greg, quite the baptism in year one that you went through. Just wondering about the team's expectations you have for year two.
Well, one expectation is that year two will be a little smoother than the first year. It was a great year. We learned a lot. Of course, there were always going to be some surprises. Our expectations for this year are set really high expectations, work hard every day to get better, good product on the field, something that our fans can be proud of.
Greg, obviously it was a busy year one. When you think about, sort of what you've learned, where do you start in that process?
I think it has to start with our fans. I mean, we knew coming in, obviously, just such a rich tradition here, but given the season that we had, our fans' support, interest, passion, a good surprise. I talked about, probably it would have been a year ago, about setting culture, and for us that starts with people, setting high expectations, giving them resources, and then holding them accountable. I've been doing that for a long time at Walmart. The big learning was, how do you actually translate those principles in this environment, in this setting? And there are a lot of differences, and a lot of that just comes from experience, and that we've gotten a lot of that in the first year.
I said we're supposed to identify yourself. Troy Rank from Denver 7. In that regard, Greg, what are you seeing from Sean Payton and how he is establishing a culture as he gets ready to now embark on his first, not only training camp, but first season?
I think Sean's been tremendous. I mean, he came in and right away changed the tone in the building. He sets very high expectations. Everybody knows that they're going to be held accountable. At the same time, he's a great teacher, always wanting to teach. He's a great communicator. And then a big thing was the staff that he put together. So coming in and building a really diverse staff, and I mean diversity in terms of coaching trees that they came from, age, experience. We've got everybody from Mike Westhoff, to Chris Banjo and Davis Webb that are just out of the league. So really a tremendous staff that I think he's put together.
Greg, Andrew Mason, DenverSports.com. You guys obviously had the helmet unveiled a couple of days ago. And sort of in that vein, I'm wondering, just over the last year, what you've learned about kind of where the culture around this team is as far as kind of valuing the past, like that old logo on the logo, but also wanting to be progressive and move forward.
I can tell you my view is legacy and history is incredibly important, and we want to honor that. But at the same time, one of my pet peeves, I remember my first meeting at Walmart when I took over as chairman, and I was explaining some of my pet peeves. And one was, please don't ever say the words, "that's the way we've always done it," as rationale for something. So I think we want to honor history, honor our legacy here, but be willing to change when it's necessary.
Greg, Sean Payton was pretty vocal about saying the league should be ashamed of what they're doing to the guys that are being penalized for gambling. What's your view on the punishment that the NFL puts on that particular infraction, and do you agree with the coach on that?
So this is obviously a league matter. I'd mainly point you to our statement. At the same time, I'd say, I think Sean wanted to show support for a young player who's a good young man who has made some mistakes. At the same time, for our coaching staff and I think others around the league, everybody's adapting to this new policy and what the consequences are. And that can be frustrating when you lose a player at this point in the season. At the same time, this really gets to the integrity of the game, and it behooves, all of us, owners, coaches, front office, players, like, we have to do the right thing, and that's what we're focused on.
Greg, Nick Kosmider with The Athletic. I'm wondering if you can just share your perspective of how the stadium renovations have come along and just sort of your view of that process.
Really good. I mean, the team, Damani Leach, Jay Roberts, others, my challenge to them is we haven't touched the stadium in any meaningful way since it's been built. So when that last game ends, what can we get done before the next season starts? And to get the renovations done, we're not quite there yet, but we will be. And to get $100 million of renovations done in that period of time is a really big deal. I'm very proud of the team, and I think our fans will appreciate it.
Greg Vic Lombardi, Altitude Sports. How much of a leash do you give Coach Payton when it comes to structuring everything around training camp, operations, people that show up for games and practices? I mean, how much do you guys discuss this stuff, or is it everything's planned according to him?
We talk a lot. At the same time, I'm a big believer in empowering people, and he's got years of experience in this league and has run training camps many times. So for a lot of decisions, he makes the call, but there are other things that we'll talk in more depth on, and that's part of building a relationship, is understanding where he knows he has free reign, and other points that we'd touch base and make a decision together.
Mark Kisla, Denver Post. Old guy question here. From the jump, you talked about setting expectations and holding people accountable. My early impressions of Coach Payton is he's old school, cantankerous, and sometimes a bit prickly. How does that fit with your ideas of culture and expectations?
I think it's great that he's got strong convictions and views, and it comes from years of experience, and he's got a lot of emotion and cares passionately about this team and what we're building, and his heart's in the right places, and his intentions are right. Again, he started with, we're going to raise the bar, and I think that's what we needed with this team and organization.
Greg, Zach Stevens, DNVR. You've talked about Sean Payton already, but what's one thing that's surprised you that you weren't expecting about Sean that he brings to the organization that you didn't know when you hired him in January?
Interesting. I think that teaching element that I did mention. I knew he had the experience. I knew he was going to bring the offensive mind, a number of other things, but that teaching where he really takes moments consistently throughout the day, and that's with his staff, that's with others in the building. It'll be in the cafeteria, it'll be on the field, and that constant teaching was something that I hadn't expected.
Jeff Legwell, ESPN. Greg, I know there's a limit this year on fans, but what's your vision of this complex and site in the future? Do you want a bigger one where more people can come, or what do you see the future of this complex?
Yeah, we're evaluating that. We love this location. We own the land here. This is where we'd obviously like to be. That being said, the building that we're in now is a bit small, especially when you look at the locker room and mode of player travel throughout the building. It's not connected to the weight room or this structure, and so we're looking at options where we could potentially bring that together, but no immediate plans on that.
Would you have to work elsewhere if you did something like that?
Too early to tell, but ideally not.
Last question, Artie Stapleton.
Hey, Greg. This offseason was, I think from fan standpoint, very different from in the past. You've talked about your ownership group seeing this team as a community asset, just like Mr. Boland did. But when Sean came in, when he hires the coordinators, they weren't introduced to the media. Free agent signings, they weren't, on the podium. It was all kind of hush-hush, and the Nuggets had their thing going, and the Avalanche had their thing going. But I'm just wondering, as the ownership group, I suppose you're good with that approach. Is that something you might tweak in the future, or keep it the way that it was this offseason?
I think one, we're always open to changing and tweaking, and I think you can expect that from us. I think the season that we just had and that we're coming off of, it was an important reset for the team with a lot of new faces, and what happened in the last season, it was a good way for us to start and be totally focused on football. And it's a balance. It is a community asset, and our fans care a lot. at the end of the day, what they care about most is winning. And so if there's something that we can do that we think helps prepare us to do that in a better way, we will make that decision. Thank you all.